So it seems that the new faction for Warhammer 40k goes on sale this week. The big launch box for the Emperor's Children is landing. So let's talk about the release, any new information, and all the stuff that we know about so far. Hello and welcome back to Warspecs Tactics, where today it seems that it's the launch of the big box for the Legion of Slaanesh, though it does appear that it's just the launch box at this point, and Demon Primarch Fulgrim will be along later. This one's definitely been a much anticipated box. Warhammer 40k doesn't really get an entire new faction and codex all that often, but as people had anticipated for a fair while now, with the other Deity Legion codexes becoming a thing, we now have the turn of the 4th Chaos Deity, and I feel like for the majority of people wanting to jump into the army, this will probably be a good place to start. From Games Workshop's previews of the Emperor's Children so far, we know that they've got 7 new plastic kits coming out basically. The Champions of Slaanesh box has 3 of them, the Noise Marines, the Troops box set, and the generic Lord character, and then we'll have Fulgrim himself, Lucius the Eternal, the Faultless Blades, and the Lord Cacophonist coming later, along with the Combat Patrol box set that will go heavy on the Faultless Blades. Being announced this Sunday means that their pre-order dates will be March the 1st, so the final release in stores will be the 15th of March, and usually there's around about something like a 4 to 8 week gap between the launch box going on sale and the codex coming out. I think the guard pre-order times were exactly 4 weeks apart, though it seems that Games Workshop might have changed their attitude towards these big box sets and actually seems to be keen to actually put out the points cost that will be in the codex and give those out as a digital download very shortly after things go on sale. I think that will be a nice move for people picking it up, as it's just a bit weird having a box set with the codex that all the points are outdated in. I'd guess that demand on this one will be really quite a big one, given that they're a whole new faction to Warhammer 40k, and a fair few people have been hyped for Emperor's Children for a good long time now. I'd guess that supply of these will be better than most battle forces that Games Workshop's typically done, say all the ones which are sort of launch battle forces with a special character inside of. They haven't often made too many of those. Probably more in the sort of scale of Deathcore of Krieg, Blood Angels, and the Kroot box sets. They generally made quite a lot of all of those, and it's perhaps been more dependent on the amount of demand for them as to whether or not they've sold out super quick. The Deathcore box set and the Blood Angels box set certainly went very early in certain places of the world, perhaps worse in the USA and Canada compared with most, but I guess we'll see. For pricing for this one, it's almost certainly going to be £145, $230 or €180. That's the same price point as the Blood Angels and the Deathcore Krieg, and this one does seem to be the exact same offering. If I hear any differently, I'll update it in a pinned comment down below. As ever, if you were looking to pick up the box set or Warhammer 40k kits in general, I do have a bunch of discount retailers linked down in the video description. And on big pricey box sets like this, it's usually worth getting the saving if possible, though it might be easy or hard depending on how many of these copies of the box sets that Games Workshop gives the discount retailers. In any case, link below we have Element Games in the UK for 15% off, Gap Games in Australia for 21%, Venomous Workshop in Canada for 10% off, Wargame Portal in the USA for 15%, and Taschengeldieb in Germany and the EU for 16 to 20%. Here are the pre-order times that the big boxes will be going live. It's usually midnight Eastern Time in the USA and Canada, with the Games Workshop sales going live the next day, 10 AM in the UK, 11 AM in Western Europe, and midday Australian Eastern Time down under. For this one, if you're certain that you are going to pick up a copy, it's worth being early, because as we just saw with the Deathcore of Krieg, they sold out really quite quickly in multiple different locations. I think in the UK it was around for about a day, in the USA it was a matter of hours. And in particular, the ones at discount tend to sell out faster, as Games Workshop doesn't actually give the retailers as much as they'd like. This is the contents of the Champions of Slaanesh box set, as revealed at the Las Vegas Open. It's going to contain the generic faction commander and the Lord Exultant, 2 units of 10 Tormentors or Infractors, 2 units of Noise Marines, the most iconic Emperor's Children infantry units, a codex cover with a limited edition one, though it's not the super mad fancy Chaos Collector's Edition style one that they previewed the other week, a set of datasheet cards, though maybe a bit more limited compared with some they've done in the past, plus some transfers. As I'm sure many of you are well aware, I'm also doing a giveaway for the Emperor's Children box set, and I'll talk about that at the end of the video. For those who are interested in entering for that, there'll be 8 of those on offer via this one. Taking a closer look at the models in the box though, first up we have the HQ choice in the Lord Exultant. This one is basically the generic Chaos Lord, but made for Emperor's Children. A great big logo of Slaanesh on his back, and then a good chunk of different war gear options and a head swap. There's a Power Sword and Plasma Pistol option, a Rupture Lash and Screamer Pistol, or a Power Fist and Phoenix Spear. This will likely be his price individually, around about $42 or £26. And in the previews they said that he'd have a similar sort of damage buff special rule to the Chaos Lord for one big once per game melee buff. It might be of a different flavour, maybe with more attacks or something, given that it's Slaanesh though. I suspect he'll also have the -1 command point stratagem, the same as things like captains or lords. He might be quite a relevant character as well, as it looks like there's only him, the Lord Cacophonist, and the generic Chaos Space Marine Sorcerer that will be able to bear enhancements as far as we know. Next up, we've got the base troops in the Infractors or Tormentors. The Infractors are the ones aimed with dueling sabres and bolt pistols, so should be good for messing up enemy light infantry. And the Tormentors are the more sort of standard Chaos Space Marine Legionaries with bolters sort of armament. It looks like the majority of these in the previews were armed with basic bolt weapons, getting some standard special weapons like the plasma gun here, and the unit champion looks like they've got the option to take a whip as well. Games Workshop gave us a good chunk of previews about them. They move 7 inches, have Infiltrate, are a battle line, and are OC2, and they get the Sticky Objectives rule via a Defile Objectives one, and as a result it looks like they're going to be fairly godly objective scoring troops, being able to lock down objectives and then move off them if they need to. I suspect it'll almost certainly make sense to have some of them, but not loads of them in a list. Otherwise, we've got the alternative build for them, which are the Infractors. As mentioned, they get dueling sabres, and I believe that perhaps the Sergeant had a power sword, though it wasn't too obvious, but they didn't have any special weapons in the unit as per the previews. Apparently they're scouts, and they get some precision attacks with their melee, so could be able to take out some lighter characters. Will depend on their point stat lines and special rules as to how interesting they are, I guess. In the Champions box, there's 2 sets of them in any case. They should be $62 or £40 normally. That one's based on the Infiltrators or Incursors kit for the Primaris Space Marines, which does feel like quite a good equivalent for them. Next up though, we've got the infantry that probably most Emperor's Children players were looking forward to getting. And here we have the Noise Marines. There's 2 sets of 6 of them in the box set, and they have been quite radically redesigned compared with what they were before, now sort of being Emperor's Children Havocs with great big speaker grills. The majority of them armed with sonic blasters, and then I think it's 1 per 3 with the Blastmasters, and they have a Disharmonist unit leader in the squad as well, who's the guy with the power sword and screamer pistol. For their rules, it seems like you'll be able to field no more and no less than 6, which will be all very holy for Slaanesh, of course. I think there's a reasonable chance they'll be +1 toughness like Havocs. And from the blurry datasheet they previewed for us, it still looks like they've got 2 wounds and move 6 inches, which I guess is slightly faster than Havocs, but slightly slower than other Emperor's Children are going to be moving if the basic troops move 7. They confirm the Blastmaster will still have a dual firing mode. And perhaps a little bit less certain as to the prices for the Noise Marines. Most 40k box sets out there don't have 6 in them. Perhaps to speculate, they might be somewhere near the Heavy Intercessor price, which is a little bit more than things like normal 5-man elites such as Havocs or Sword Brethren. Perhaps around about $65 or £42 individually. They might be a bit higher though at say the Deathwing Knight price point, given that there's 6 of them and they're quite elite though for all we know. Then we've got the Codex itself, and 40k Codexes are typically £37 or $60, and the one in this book will have the limited edition cover. They confirm that there's going to be 6 detachments in it, and then interestingly enough, as per the data cards, they actually said that there's going to be 22 datasheets in the Codex, which means that we can have a fairly good stab as to knowing which ones they will be. There's 8 unique units that we know about, because there's the dual build on the Troops box set, and then they confirmed Helldrake, Morfiend, Rhino, Land Raider, Terminator, Spawn, and Demon Prince. It seems very likely that they'll have the Winged Demon Prince as an option as well, so a multi-build there. And they had a regular Chaos Sorcerer in the army preview shot. They also said that the Slaanesh Demons would also be in the Codex as well, and if that's correct, and their datasheets count on those whole data card things, then there's not actually all that many datasheets left after that. So I guess that would be maybe Demonettes, Seekers, Fiends, the Keeper of Secrets, and maybe at least 1 Chariot variant. If that's right, then it might tally with the Demons more sort of being an allied force in the book, and still going to have their full support in their own index. If not, I would have guessed that there'd be a lot more datasheets, given that we've got things like the Mask of Slaanesh and Celeste and Shalaxi Hellbane. And it doesn't seem possible to just port all the Slaanesh demon units into the Codex, add them to the ones that we know that they're getting, and have a figure of 22 datasheets. There'd be a bit more, I think. At least from that datasheet number, it looks like it could be kind of consistent with those supposed leaks that we got a little while back, going weirdly light on the other Chaos Space Marine things that you might expect to be in there, like say Forge Fiends and Predators, and the Demons maybe more being a sort of allied contingent, similar to how the Drukhari units are in Codex Eldari. I'm sure Games Workshop will give us some rules previews and things later in the week though. It's certainly going to be interesting to find out the new stuff for the Emperor's Children. We did have a few other teasers from the Codex. We know that the army rule is going to allow them to advance and charge and fall back and charge in some way. They said it was that, plus some more restrictions. So they'll basically be really quite fast threat Chaos Space Marines all in all. Here's the more mainstream cover. The standard one has the Sonic Blaster Noise Marine on it. And there'll also be that super fancy one with Fulgrim and a quote from Fulgrim on it too that a few people got excited about, but I'm sure will be absolutely astronomical in price. Then there'll also be the datasheet cards in the box set, which can be a handy enough reference for people collecting the faction. I feel like they're fairly reasonable added value if you are jumping into the army. They are usually £20 or $35 from Games Workshop though, always quite a lot for some paper. According to their Sunday preview, they said that these do not have the Combat Patrol datasheets in here, so it's just the 22 datasheets in the Codex and no faction rule. For a video a little while back, I had some very rough guesses at points in the box set. Obviously we don't really know this yet, and maybe Games Workshop will give us a few hints later in the week, but just going with a Chaos Lord points for the Lord Exultants, perhaps rough legionary prices for the troops, and then have arbitrarily gone for 140 points for the Noise Marines. That'd be around about 700 or so in the box set, and if so, that's not too bad for one of these launch box sets. Things like Cruz and Krieg with very cheap points cost in their units were around about half this sort of value or less, so it would get you a good chunk of models towards a full army. Feels like you could pick up Fulgrim, one of the other special characters in the Combat Patrol, and have a pretty well-rounded big force of Emperor's Children if you really wanted. Based on the estimated prices, it does look like it's probably going to be a fairly reasonable discount on the stuff contained within, presuming you want all of it. Based on my guesses, for near equivalent units, it looks like it'll be around about $390 or £250 to buy the stuff individually once it all comes out. So if it does wind up being the suspected £145 or $230, then it'd be roughly a 40% discount on buying them separately. Of course, it might be a bit higher or lower based on Games Workshop's final prices for any of the individual kits. All in all, if you want to collect the Emperor's Children and you like the models within, it doesn't seem like the worst pickup in the world. I'd imagine that most people who do want to collect them as a full army sort of way would probably find this box set a good one to pick up for them. Overall, for the main positives that I'd see them, it's quite nice to have all new model sculpts, particularly a whole force of them, and really quite a lot of plastic in the box compared with some of Games Workshop's discount offerings in the past. The actual amount saved does seem okay. It's quite nice to have a good number of Noise Marines in the box set, given that they're some of the more iconic troops compared with the Flawless Blades in the Combat Patrol. And the troops have 2 build options, so even if you're doubling up on those, at least you've got a good way to add variety. Maybe the biggest weakness might be that you're only getting 3 out of the 7 kits available to the faction. It might have been nice if they mixed things up a little bit more, and you could potentially weigh it up against the Combat Patrol, which as mentioned has the Lord Exultant, one of the sets of troops, and then 2 sets of 3 Flawless Blades. There is a bit of overlap, but I'd probably rate the Champions of Slaanesh as the more interesting one overall. The Noise Marines might limit people's wanting to buy 2 boxes of this as well for those who want to double up on the battle forces and get lots of miniatures. You would just be left with a few things redundant, like you wouldn't be able to field all the Noise Marines in one game. And the Codex and data cards you don't really need 2 of, so unless you're willing to resell some stuff, I'd imagine that most people would be wanting to get one of this but not more. As mentioned though, I feel like as the faction launch box, I'm suspecting it to be really quite popular. Let me know what your thoughts are though. Are you tempted to pick up the big box or not? Look forward to hearing all your ideas down in the comments and why or why not. And as mentioned earlier, here are the go times for the discount links down in the video description if you did want to pick it up. A big thank you to anyone supporting the channel using those. Finally, just to round up, I'll cycle back to talk about the channel giveaway for the Emperor's Children box sets. As mentioned, the March one will be for 8 copies of this box set, 1 each going to different people. And just the same as every monthly channel giveaway, there'll be 2 equal ways to enter, links down in the video description. Either you can support the channel on Patreon page for any amount, that gets you automatic entry each month and supports the content on the channel of course. Or you can support for free via social media and boost the algorithms. To do that, do these 3 actions: subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the Facebook page, and then after you've done that, to actually enter your name in the draw. A giveaway post appears on the 1st of the month, that appears on the channel's Facebook page. Reply to that with a photo of any 40k mini or imagery, along with your name and the date handwritten within the same photo. That bit's just to deter bots and spammers, though it's quite nice to see some nicely painted miniatures of course. The post is active for 24 hours, so you basically got 24 hours from midnight UK time on the 1st of March, and then after that I'll lock the post and do the draw, putting all the entries into a random number generator between the Facebook and the Patreon ones. Everyone gets just 1 entry each. The RNG pulls out the 8 winners, and then I'll post them out to people around the world when I get my hands on them. I guess by the pre-order time that'll be around about the 15th of March. Feel free to check out the links down in the video description if you want to enter for that, either the Patreon or the Facebook page. I'll leave that one there for now though. Certainly exciting stuff to see 40k get a new faction. I'll be looking forward to talking about any of the rules previews that Games Workshop give us over the weeks. Loads of exciting stuff here. Confirmation on the core army things and the unit profiles. We don't really know anything about the detachments yet, and of course we've got the question of what Fulgrim's going to be able to do in game. As mentioned, feel free to support via the Patreon page or discount links if you'd like to and help keep the videos coming. A massive thank you to anyone who is. But in any case, a huge thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.